Oh, God. Hi, everyone. Salt in the Air Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Colin Stetson album, When We Were That What Wept for the Sea. This is a brand new LP from saxophonist and minimalism maverick Colin Stetson. First reviewed this guy's music over a decade ago. It was part 2 in an impressive trio of records, his New History Warfare series. Colin came through with an impressive amount of buzz off this LP, but that has since died down a little bit, so maybe it's worth reminding some of you what makes Colin Stetson such a special artist. He is not your typical horn player. His career has mostly been spent pushing the boundaries of the instrument, using continuous breathing techniques to pull off these uninterrupted solo pieces where he hypnotically cycles through all of these gradually evolving arpeggios and melodies. And on many tracks, his saxophone is mic'd in such a way where you're hearing everything, not just the sound of the instrument and its spirit bouncing off the walls of whatever room Colin is performing in, but also, depending on the piece, the inner workings of the instrument too. The rhythmic clicks and clacks of its keys, Colin breathing, these weird ghost notes and overtones he gets blowing into the sax as he's playing even more aggressively in a way that it sounds like he's humming or singing through the sax. Either way, the end result is haunting, it's otherworldly, it's beautiful, and unlike any other sax records out there you're going to hear. Now, with all that being said, I think Colin's very unique talents on the instrument tend to guide his creative process in a very specific way, and as a result, there's not an incredible amount of variety across his discography. You could kind of hear him painting himself in a corner a little bit on his last major solo release, All This I Do for Glory. However, his collaboration with Sarah Neufeld from a while back was fantastic, and he has since spent a lot of time actually scoring TV and films. Film after film after film, actually, be it Ari Aster's amazing Hereditary, the recent Texas Chainsaw reboot, or even The Menu, which was released not that long ago. The guy's really putting in a lot of work. And he was especially prolific last year with a solo drone album, the Void Patrol collab with Elliot Sharp, Billy Martin, and Peyton McDonald. Apparently, he also had a hand in the Disney Among the Stars soundtrack too. Damn. Colin is getting those Disney dollars. Again, the guy is seemingly more and more everywhere every year, and in the midst of all of these busy collaborations and crossovers, he has found the time to come through with another huge, large, and in charge, ambitious solo album. One where he feels like he's playing to his strengths for the most part, going back to the old Colin Stetson a bit, giving us those raw and dizzying minimalist sax pieces, but with some exciting little improvements and additions to keep things interesting. Be it the thematic through lines you can draw between the opening track, the Lighthouse 1, to the Lighthouse 2, 3, 4, and 5 later on the LP. My favorite being the crossover with Scottish musician Breda Hyambeal, who brings some stellar and heavy bagpipes on her featured track, which I think makes sense because I've always thought Colin, the way he approaches the sax, it is very bagpipe-like. There's also a spellbinding spoken word piece led by Irish singer and producer Irla O'Leonard, focusing in on this dramatically stated poem that thematically wraps up a lot of the record's emotions and feelings, not just in terms of the pieces we're hearing, but their titles. There are also moments on this thing like Passage, which does, yes, bring some extra instrumentation into the fold, even if some of the chord progressions and layering are a bit obvious and basic. But there's not many other tracks on this thing bringing in a whole lot of extra. This record is over an hour, it's 16 cuts long, and the bread and butter of this thing is exactly the kind of insane, physically demanding sax performances that Colin is known for, just elevated or intensified in some way, shape, or form. Like the title track, for example, which is classic Stetson all the way. But there's these bright and heavenly tones calling away very quietly, very subtly in the background that make the piece so much more immersive. Plus, with that close sax miking, you hear those bass notes rhythmically pulsating along the progression of the piece, kind of keeping pace. Infliction is a much moodier piece by comparison. The grooves of this track skip like a broken record or like a limping monster slowly lurching toward you. The unsettling vibes coming off this one with the howling ghost notes just calling away in the background only intensify those feelings. Long Before the Sky Would Open is the lengthiest piece on this record at 8 minutes, and while it does sound like many of the winding pieces from New History Warfare Volume 2 in a sense, it also also feels much more far-reaching and determined this time around, with some new sounds entering the fold, like these weird fluttering bits that I have no idea how Colin is doing that, and furthermore, those fiery, distorted sort of overtones Colin is throwing in here and there just sound even more aggressive than they have in the past. There's Fireflies. The speed and intensity of this piece is absolutely insane. I'm just melting down at the quickness that Colin is coming at the sax with on this one. This and WRITHEN are two of the most edge-of-your-seat cuts on the entire record. Then with the surface and the light, the more measured pacing of this one, along with the elongated notes, the slower progression gives more the sensation of floating in space. Then the miking and presentation of Colin's performance on Behind the Sky involves all of these really aggressive, noisy, mechanical rhythm sounds going off. It sort of sounds like there's a full percussion section performing behind Colin. There are some strong final moments on this record as well, including the spoken word piece I talked about earlier that I think ties everything up for the most part very nicely in a bow. At the end of this poem, there is a gorgeous and powerful instrumental ascent that creates a wonderful finale. And then the somber closer, Safe With Me, is a sad and chillingly beautiful moment on the record, which I think just goes to show how much effort and thought Colin put into the overall progression and sequencing of this album, really resulting in his most cohesive and focused effort to date. Now, with that being said, I'm not entirely sure this thing needed to be over an hour in length. I don't know if there's quite that much versatility to the track list here. There were at least a few tracks that paled in comparison to others or felt kind of extra or maybe slightly redundant, but the record is still easily one of Colin's best, and he's come through, again, it's been a while, and he's come through with yet another enchanting and unique solo effort. I'm feeling a strong 8 on this album. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Colin Stetson, forever.